Hey everyone, welcome back to our video on using Codex, right, for material science programming. This is just absolutely blowing my mind. I hope that if you have not done this yet, that you should download this right away, either Claude or Codex or whatever agent you want to use. I'm just absolutely stunned at how good this is. I'm going to show you a new one today, right? We're going to talk about how we can use this for material sciences, right? So here's an example. For one of my recent research projects, we are training a language model with a bunch of actual crystal structures and then using that language model to generatively and conditionally generate some materials that could be useful for a given application. And part of that training process involves using the MP52 dataset. So what is that? Well, you can read about it. The MP52 dataset says here as a snapshot, it contains all the experimentally verified materials project entries having no more than 52 different sites in the unit cell, right? So this is a data set that comes from the materials project. And if you don't find it online somewhere, I think you can actually download it here from our GenMetrics file. But let's just show you how you would go about grabbing that data from materials project. But instead of doing it the old-fashioned way where we would use the API ourselves and do the coding, let's do it with an agent and see what it does. Okay, so here's what I did. I said, create a script that downloads the MP52 dataset from materials project. This is the entire crystal structure having up to 52 unique atoms in the unit cell, and then store all those sieves in a zip folder. So it tells me what it's going to do. It summarizes trying to make sure I understood what you asked it to do, and then it starts to plan out what it's going to do. Like it's going to use the MP rester, that's the API for using the materials project. It's going to create the script for doing it. It's got CLI, it handles your API key, basically gets everything set up, but before it can actually run it, it actually says, okay, if you want to run this, you're going to use UV to manage your libraries like MP API and PyMatGen. You need both of those. And of course, you're going to have to set your environment variable for your API key for your materials project API. So in this example, I knew that it knew that I hadn't provided the API key. So then I provide the API key, which has now been updated, obviously. And so it says, great, now I'm going to run it again. I'll use your API key. I'm going to write that archive to the workspace, and I'll stream the progress as we go. It's amazing. So it does it. It's able to run it no problem. And out comes this now file with all of these entries. It's about 90 megabytes in size. It's amazing. And if you look at the output, here it is. Like now we've got this folder with all of these different CIF cards, all, 130,000 of them. Pretty incredible. Each one of these you could open up and see that it actually did grab them. Pretty amazing. So how does this all work, right? So I'm paying for a ChatGPT Pro account, which allows me access within some limits. You can actually see how much your use is that you're using. So for example, rate limits remaining down here. You can see that I haven't run anything this morning yet, so I have 100% of my credits on a 5-hour rolling basis. And it also has a weekly basis. So I still have 94% of my weekly use because I've only been using this for a couple of days. And obviously, if you want to upgrade to like the $200 a month service, you can get even more tokens. And at some point, honestly, I might do that because I'm just blown away at how powerful this is. You have to select the model that you're going to use. I've just been using the default one for now. I haven't explored these different model usages. But there's this really cool option to explore different reasoning levels, right? The low will be fast responses with the lighter reasoning, all the way up to like extra high reasoning depths for your really complex problems. Again, I've messed with this a little bit, and I think medium's like, it certainly is doing it for all of my tasks. And then the last thing down here is your permissions, right? The default permissions, it says Codex automatically runs commands in a sandbox, but it will periodically ask you if you're okay with what it's doing. Like if it's going to run a command, and I'll show you an example in a second, it will ask you like, am I okay to do this? And you can say yes or no. You can check the log, see what it's actually changing, and you should do that, right? If you want to be crazy, then you can give it full access. It's going to warn you here that like, hey, like it has full access over your computer. It might write files. It will write files. It could delete important files. So this has a higher risk. So it's recommended. I think certainly if you're new to this and you haven't done it before, leave it on the default permissions. But you can just modify this any way you want. Like, so for example, I could add something to this. Let's do the following. Okay, that worked really well. Now I would like you to do it again, but only grab oxides, period. Return the MP52 dataset that has now been screened down to only include oxides and store that in a separate zip file. So here I'm providing the instruction for the task entirely in the prompt. I'll show you how there's other ways to do that beyond just what you can capture in the prompt, but let's just show you how this works so you can see how it operates. You see in real time how it's running. It's saying it's thinking. Pretty soon it's going to tell me how it interpreted my instructions. It's going to come up with a plan, and then it's going to start to run them in real time. Okay, it says, all right, I'm going to update the script. I'm going to create an oxides-only filter, and then I'm going to rerun it to generate the zip with just that subset, right? So first off, it grabbed that old file that we were using. That was the Python file for how it grabbed the original one. It says I found that script, and I'm patching it now to include this oxides-only screening logic, meaning that it must contain oxygen and at least one non-oxygen element. And it will then separate out counters based off of that. So check it out. This thing popped at the bottom. This is the first time where it's asking me to approve something. It says, are you okay? Do you want me to run a quick syntax check on this updated script before I actually start the download? Yeah. So you can say yes or yes, don't ask me again. I'm just going to say that's fine. You can run this Python script always. Here's actually showing you the changes. It added 18 lines and it deleted 2 lines, right? You can see the actual changes, what it made to it. And it's going to go ahead and run that. It says, all right, do you want me to run this updated script to generate the oxides? Yep, that'll create the CIF one for me. This will take just a moment because it does have to call the API. Now I've deleted my API, I changed it. So I think this will not work because I'm going to need to give it my new API. Let's see what happens. Yeah, check it out, just like I thought. Again, because I had used this previously and I wanted to update my API key, which it suggested I do, it says the API key now returns invalid credentials. And so now it's saying, do you want me to run the local oxide filtering script to generate it? So it's trying to find a way around it. I'm going to go ahead and say no, because I'm just going to update my API. If we provide this new API key, which I won't do in this video, then it would work awesome. So very, very cool. Here's another project that we worked on. Okay, in this project, I asked it to build a, first off, I did things a little bit differently. You'll notice that this language is much more descriptive of what it wants to be created. I actually used ChatGPT. I described the project that I wanted to build, and then I asked it for the best prompt as well as the agents.md file to make this work the best. What is an agents.md file? Well, let me show you. Okay. What I've done here is I've opened a new folder. If I go back to my Codex projects, here's one that I'm calling stress strain. Now, when I originally created this, it was just an empty folder. But inside this folder, you'll notice it has this agents.md file, this guy right here. Inside this agents.md file, if we take a look at this a little closer, this is where you can provide much more detailed instructions and plan for Codex to use as it creates whatever it is that it's building for you. So for example, here, just in plain text, right? This is just markdown language. I have goal, build a Python CLI that reads in stress strain, comma separated value files and outputs plots, PDF, and JSON. Here's the constraints. I don't want any network calls. Use, I want you to use things like NumPy, Pandas, Matplotlib, Report Lab for markdown to PDF if preferred. I want it to add tests with PyTest, which is a way of testing the program as it goes. So it doesn't just like output something and then you have to look at it and see if it works. This allows us to build in tests as we go. Provide sample input files in a sample data folder and expected outputs in the golden folder. Style, I want small functions, I want type hints, I want doc strings, just like good coding practice. I want robust CSV parsing, like the columns might have variations of names like stress or capital stress or MPA, etc. Like learn how to recognize the differences. What's the definition of done? Well, Python-m ss report, sample data, some SV, and then out will run successfully. So like if you run that in your command line interface, right, it would run successfully. And the output should be like a PNG, it should be a JSON, it should be a PDF. It's looking for an image, a JSON file, and a report. And that any PyTest created should pass, right? So this is a cool thing you can do. You can actually do other things in this. You can come up with plans and things like that. But this agents.md is a great way to define your project such that when you go to use it now, which I did here, again, I asked for ChatGPT to help give me some good language for the first prompt, and it aligns with what we saw in the agents.md file, right? It says, build the repo scaffold for a Python package SS report, add a CLI entry point, create a source SSR report with modules for IO.py, metrics.py, plots.py, reports.py, CLI.py, and add a PyProject toml, so it's using UV, with dependencies and PyTest setup. Add sample data with 2 tiny example CSVs, synthetic data is okay, and then make sure that that thing, Python SS report, works. Amazing. So you see it go. It created it. It said, I found an empty repo, and the only thing in it was this AGENTS.md, right? That's what we provided originally, which I had ChatGPT help me create. It says, so I'm going to create the rest of the package using source SS report, a minimal working CLI flow, a PyProject toml, PyTest, and all the other things. So it gets to work on this. It goes really fast. It creates all of that. It did get stopped with a bug. I noticed in VS Code, in the newest version I was using, sometimes when you go to click the 1, 2, or 3, like for yes, yes always, or don't do it, it would get stuck and it wouldn't register that. So I went back to the previous version, and then it worked when I told it to resume. So it says, okay, I'm resuming where I left off. I'm going to finish these pieces. It confirmed that it exists. It basically is doing the testing. It created a CSV so it can actually run it and test it. And very quickly, it's able to tell you what it's accomplished, right? And it looked pretty good. I was able to take a look at it. So then I added some additional instructions. I said, okay, implement Young's modulus estimation by doing a linear fit over a configurable strain window. Find the 0.2% offset yield. And it knows what this stuff is, right? Because of the language model behind the LLM that's been pre-trained on a lot of things on the internet, it knows these even domain-specific things to material science. Like UTS, it knows that's ultimate tensile strength. Elongation at break, toughness, the area under the curve, write unit tests for each synthetic curve where the answer is known. And so it does it. It starts adding those to this metrics.py file where it's able to calculate these different metrics that we care about. It starts testing it out. God, it's just so amazing. And then it does it. And again, this took like 2 minutes. Like, it runs crazy fast. I was able to take a look at it. It looked pretty good. So then we say, all right, generate plots and a PDF report for per file. The PDF should include the specimen metadata, so the file name and the data, a summary table of all of its metrics, and a plot image, and also write a JSON summary. So it does all of that, no problem. And then finally, since I'm doing this for our class, I said, let's add batch processing. Like maybe as a student, I expect them to be able to run this on like 50 different stress strain curves, not just one at a time. And then I also wanted a way for me to have a class summary, class CSV to aggregate all of the things into a single CSV that I can use for grading. And boom, it's just able to do this like instantly. So cool. And then I said, great, but now let's generate some more realistic stress strain data. The ones in the original test set were overly simplistic. The original ones only had like 4 data points and there's like a straight line. So then it's like, sure, let's replace those with something that looks a little more realistic. And it has some options on how to go about doing that. Like how big should it be? And so it decided to do 15 points with realistic elastic region, a yield transition, hardening up to the UTS, and then softening afterwards. That's on sample A. Sample B now had 13 points, slightly different. Super cool. And then it's like, hey, do you want other material archetypes, like a curve representing a brittle ceramic material or a ductile polymer material or a high strength low ductility? So I said, yeah, let's add them. Check them out. And finally, it's able to run. I'll just jump to the end to show you the end result of this. Here's an example of a ductile polymer, right? So you can see the actual data points here, right? Looks like a ductile polymer. Up above that, it's got these different metrics, right? The total number of points, the Young's modulus. I've checked these values on some of them and they were correct. I haven't checked it on this one. You obviously, this is still like a language model. It still can mess things up, but so far it's been very accurate. The 0.2% offset strength and the 0.2% yield, the ultimate tensile strength. Again, I have to double check these values. I think well, we'll see. I don't know if that's correct. But the fact that even if you find a mistake, you can just explain to it in words what you want it to do, and it can just generate these really high quality code architectures is absolutely blowing my mind. So in our next video, I've shown you, in our first video, we showed you just broadly what this can do for things like mapping and cool stuff. In this video, we showed you some examples of things I've done for material science. In the next video, I'm going to show you, we're going to do one together, a brand new one for something that I remember assigning to my students as a end of semester project, and only a small fraction of students could build it correctly. Let's see if Codex can do it and see how long it will take.